can you give me one of those stands by you? You have like 4 of them by you.
Two
for some reason.
2 of them. They're cleaning here.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Mad Mamluks. My name is Sim. Along with me are my co-hosts, Sheikh Hammer,
Assalamu alaikum.
And our regular guest, Sheikh Omar Haqqani.
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome to the team, Sheikh Omar. How do you feel being a regular now?
I feel so special.
The man working in the shadows.
I'm glad to be here.
So first off, thank you. People don't realize, but Sheikh Omar was instrumental in us kind of putting together Sami Hamdi coming here. Without that, we probably wouldn't have anything organized. So a lot of people didn't realize that. So this is the man behind the scenes that helped us. So
as they say in your tongue, Barakallah fikum.
That's not what I was expecting to hear here.
He doesn't like hearing kind words.
May Allah make you better than we think you are.
Let's move on.
Folks, help us out on patreon.com/the Mad Mamluks. Oh, as I was scratching this, I remembered some of our listeners were asking me, where do you get your kifaya? Yeah, Brother Imran. Yeah, Siddi Imran.
Yeah.
And I said, brother, I'm sad to report to you, these were purchased in Mecca when I was traveling with our dear brother here, Sheikh Omar Haqqani. I bought them several years ago. The reason why I bring this up is because we, in all likelihood, cannot go do Umrah in the very near future or maybe in long-term future based on some of the guests we've had. I bring this up because just as a way to remind our listeners the sacrifice we're doing for you so that you can help us out on patreon.com/the Mad Mamluks and help us support this effort so that we can make the show happen. We have some really amazing guests coming up. Imam Tom Fashin's coming in towards the end of the month. Jake, the Muslim metaphysician.
Nice.
He's going to be coming in as well. So we're excited for that.
What's the word on the other Jake? I won't say his last name. The other Jake.
Oh, Jake Shields?
Oh, yeah.
I think he'll come in next time. He's
super active on Twitter about Palestine. Super active.
Yeah, Jake is, we talk over Twitter.
Nice.
I'd like to say we're friends, but we've only said, hi, hello, how are you? How about you come to Chicago?
Yeah.
He said, I'll try.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I think that makes us friends, all right?
Yeah, no, I like the perspective, not because we want somebody that's non-Muslim who it's like a trophy for us, but it's beautiful to see another perspective. It's the same thing for me when I see somebody who's not Muslim that reads the Quran, is inspired by it, somebody who comes to the fold of Islam, even though you've been Muslim your whole life, you see a different angle that you would have never gotten, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing when I read his Twitter. I was like, dude, this guy's about it. He's willing to sacrifice everything.
Yeah.
He's willing to sacrifice everything.
Well,
yeah, I'm just saying that there's a growing interest of people who are purchasing Qur'ans, reading Qur'ans, talking about it. And I think even if they don't become Muslim, it's still a net positive because the Qur'an is a book that even if you don't accept Islam, but there's always goodness you can take from it. So at the very least, they have an understanding of who we are, right? And they understand why, for example, people in Gaza have such determination, have such resilience, right? Because the Quran talks about themes like this, right? How you're going to be tested. People suffered, the Anbiya suffered, right? People turn them out. Allah reinforces people. The Malaika help them. Things like this, concepts like this that they can resonate with them. And it's a book that gives you a lot of hope, right? I mean, it's parabolic, right? It'll say, mention things about struggle and then ease, pain, suffering, and then ease and goodness, right? And health, right? Or goodness. So these themes, I think anyone who reads it can quickly pick up why Muslims think the way they do.
Yeah. We had a wonderful weekend with Sami Hamdi.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't had a chance to check out the events, or if you're in Chicago and you just missed it, we have the links. Where do we have the links?
I think you posted it.
Yeah, I think
they're on my Facebook page. So those of you guys who follow me on Facebook.
Right, and I put on my Twitter, for those that follow me on Twitter, I
Yeah.
put the link for all 3 lectures that were done around the Chicago circuit. So they were aside from the podcast. So if you left the podcast wanting more, make sure you tune into those lectures. The audio is probably not going to be like a podcast format, but it's still very clear. Each day is different, so we didn't do the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about hearing the same content. Definitely new stuff, but
There's
check
going to be
them
lots
out.
of overlap. He wants to give a singular message everywhere, and his message is he just wants to be very clear about it. But there's obviously going to be some overlap. It's fine. It's better for members.
We tried to mix it up between each of these events and make it unique so that everyone who's attending. Some people were traveling like 2.5 hours each way to attend the event.
He came all 3 days.
Yeah,
with him and his family.
Deeply appreciative of everyone who supported us. It was just an amazing weekend, incredibly tiring, but so much fun and so many new relationships built.
Yeah.
Special thanks to Smashburger. Well, where are they from? Naperville or
No, but they're actually mobile. I asked them. There's no storefront. They're a mobile enterprise where they can come up to your event and cook on the spot.
Sweet, yeah.
And you can invite them to your house, meaning like if you're having a big party at your house, small party, whatever, they'll come prepared and to do a great job.
For our listeners in
Great
Chicago,
brothers.
make sure you remember them whenever you're hosting a party or an event. Genuinely good brothers.
And it's not, I'm just saying this, I know I said this before, it's not very easy to impress Sim and Mort when it comes to food. They're total, I don't know what to say.
No, I mean, we're burger aficionados, and
they're not easily impressed. Especially Mort doesn't like any food, especially in the Muslim restaurants, very few of them. So he's very critical of his palate.
Yeah.
I'm the least picky out of all you guys.
What?
Wait,
this guy.
You make fun of me that I'll eat anything, and I think it's delicious. You're so easily impressed.
No, I don't say that. I just said you're easily impressed. And that's true.
Yeah, you say I'll eat anything, it's delicious, and it's
true.
Like
I still believe that, but I mean, doesn't mean I'm not picky, or I am picky. I don't know, whatever. Anyways,
along with them, I think also credit needs to be given to the 3 masjids that hosted the event.
Yeah.
A huge shout out to them. Muslim Association of Bolingbrook in Bolingbrook, Masjid Al-Huda in Schaumburg, and MEC in Morton Grove.
Yes, sir.
They were all exceptional in hosting the event. Actually, one of the masjids, I'm not going to mention which one, they actually had not heard of the guest, but they took our word for it and agreed to host him without even knowing too much about the...
Well, that's the reputation of Omar Haqqani.
No, that's not... I said us taking our recommendation. So, I mean, they were all, exceptional. They were all great in hosting us, even after the event.
Yes.
And it resonates with the people, and it also tells us this is what, I think people are, they're longing for this, that this is the message that they want to hear, a message of hope.
Yep.
A message that is rooted in history and teaching us lessons from the Sirah and patience and the geopolitical situation behind the scenes, which very few people are able to sift through and articulate in a way that a common man can understand.
Before October 7th, this kind of event would never have happened, especially with the type of topics that Sami Hamdi talks about. People, the idea, the amount of masjids that wanted him was incredible, and all across the country. It wasn't just like Chicago; it was everywhere. And to have someone who openly, unashamedly blasts MBS, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and now to see the Muslims in the West embrace that type of a speaker. Major conferences in the United States are embracing him, giving him the podium. It says a lot. It says that times have changed. For those who missed it before October 7th, and for recent memory since I was a child, never ever has there been someone who was given the stage at the mosque, in the musalla of a mosque, forget about a gymnasium or anything, in the musalla of the mosque, talking politics, letting people know that there's hope, that there's highlighting the corruption of Muslim governments, letting them know what they can do to from their part, how they can help the Palestinians. It's incredible. It gave me shivers just thinking about how times have changed.
And it's not. I would say it's not just about MBS, even though MBS is a big part of his
It's
message.
not just MBS,
It's about the entire situation that a lot of people have a hard time understanding and comprehending the politics that are behind the entire situation.
I think the biggest thing is that, unfortunately, over the past 15, 20 years, the only time we hear about politics in the masjid is when the local candidate comes by and talks about their, we need your vote. Aside from that, Muslims haven't really had the opportunity to speak to and listen to Muslims who are educated on the matter, articulate how they're feeling. I would argue that a lot of Muslims feel the way that Sami Hamdi feels. However, but they're just unable to either have a platform or unable to articulate the way he does, right? Or at least have the deeper knowledge to support the claims. But I mean, all things aside, I think as much as some people may be happy that he was going after the rulers and he's giving it to them, I just want to reinforce the point that it's not that there's a personal vendetta. It's more about that we know they can do something. We know there's some good there. We expect you. We're let down by it. And that's why we mention it. Not because we enjoy just bringing down people and no, because we have this, we see the potential. We see the ability that that the Muslim world has. And and we feel like they're not recognizing the autonomy and the agency they have. And if they could, these individuals that we're criticizing could do wonderful things, could do great things. And I mentioned, I was speaking to someone about this on the side too, actually Brother Sami, that it just took no one knows the history of, for example, about Malik Faisal, right? I mean, he has definitely wronged. He was very brutal inside of his regime. I mean, he was not someone that was like a hands off, but everybody remembers him for his stance on Palestine. Yeah. Everybody does. There's nothing. That's one thing that nobody can take for him. That when it came to that issue, that he was absolute and uncompromising that issue, and that's what immortalized him.
Do you remember the conversation that happened between him and the U.S. president?
I don't recall it.
We can go back to. Do you remember what that was? You remember what that conversation was between Malik Faisal and that?
Well, are you talking about when he said, "You guys can't live without oil. We came from the desert."
Yeah, but no. What his stance on Palestine also. Wasn't there some conversation?
There's something about how can I negotiate with them, or anyways. Yeah. But the point being though is that no. It was earlier than that. It was not Malik Faisal. It was King Saud in the beginning, where he was approached by it, and he said, "Wait a minute. So you have this population that was in Europe." That was, I think it was, I forgot exactly who, but anyways, It was, you have this population in Europe that was oppressed in Europe, and then you want to send them to Palestine. So he responded very, very clearly, like, well, why should the Palestinians have to deal with this issue? Like, it seems to be a European problem. It doesn't seem to be a Middle Eastern problem. Like, I don't know why the Palestinians have to be then forced to give up land. And he was very clear, but I think that was a time when things were much more simplistic, right? But the point being is, regardless of all of that, what I wanted to say was that King Faisal had his errors and definitely had his flaws. But people are willing to overlook that because when it came, like push come to shove, with the issue of Palestine and pan-Islamism, his position was very clear. And so people can then overlook the small mistakes, or everything else seems inconsequential when you have that attitude, right? And I think that's what people fail to realize, that we're not expecting like perfection from our leaders. We know Allah is the only one who's perfect. There are going to be mistakes. We see even mistakes in some of the early generation made in terms of decisions and rulings they made, but it doesn't stain them. Because we know that no one's perfect. However, what we focus on is what was their attitude, what was their mission. Was it something that was to help Islam progress and move forward and the Ummah itself, or was it something that was going to divide and take away the ummah from its goal, right? So I think even if the people can feel that someone is working towards the benefit of the ummah, they can excuse the shortcomings that they have.
I don't know if you remember.
Look, not every country has the capability to go to war against the United States and Israel. Because if you do go to war against Israel, you're going to war against the United States. Let's be clear about that. Yeah. But you can do some other things. And people like King Faisal, they did an oil embargo, and he also created the OIC as well. Just as even though we know the OIC is completely ineffective and stuff, but it was a response to bringing Muslim countries together and getting them to the table so that they can address important issues that are related to Muslims in general.
Yeah. So, and speaking of that event, the oil embargo, because Henry Kissinger died recently, right? And so remember the funny event there where he went to go see King Faisal, and he's like, because the embargo was so bad, he was like, yo, can you at least refill my plane so I can go back to America? And the joke he made to him, because that's how tight it got in America. Actually, the oil embargo triggered, people don't realize this, but that triggered a whole shift in the American auto market. Because Americans traditionally had big, giant V8s that had steel, tough, like double reinforced. They were heavy cars. They were like, as we talk about in the past, but they had to find ways to reduce weight. They dropped the engine size from V8s to 6 cylinders. That's when even the Honda Civic, Toyota Corolla became more popular because the oil crisis. People didn't want to spend money on oil. It was too expensive. They wanted things that were more economical. So even till now, the effect that King Faisal, of that collective of Muslim countries that did that, the effect of that is still present today. It changed the auto market forever. Yeah.
The adoption of the 6 cylinders and 4 cylinders?
I mean, Americans traditionally had V8s, big V8s, right? They had big muscle cars, like gas guzzlers and heavy bodies that would require more horsepower and whatever it was, right? But that all had to change because they had to find a way to be more efficient, right?
That's really
things like that. So, but that, I'm not saying it's only because of what King Faisal did, but certainly, pushed it forward.
That's pretty crazy.
Apparently, you guys were saying there were some questions related to the strategy that was at least some of the things that Sami Hamdi talked about and related to voting and stuff, and there are concerns among some listeners and people who wanted that addressed, and so that we can kind of flesh that out. Why don't you start off with some of the questions, Sheikh?
Yeah, so I think, look, rightfully so. That's why I asked him on the podcast, when he was on the podcast. Look, people, even on a secular level, not even on an Islamic level, first, on a secular level, people have given up hope since this Gaza crisis, especially in the political process of the United States and where your votes are going. What is it actually worth? Is it actually people were even reconsidering lobbying and what lobbying actually does. And whenever you talk about lobbying, Israel and Zionism is usually the gold standard of lobbying, of success in the United States. So it kind of tarnished people's understanding of lobbying too for a little bit. So what are we giving? The question I had, and if someone asked me this too, I think it's a good question. What are we actually giving the people when we're encouraging them to get out of office Genocide Joe? Because that's what he kept on saying, right?
Right.
So I think that needs some clarity, definitely. What is the purpose of... So if I can just really...
Oh, go ahead.
So there was a beautiful presentation, but it seemed to be the end point was almost as if Sami Hamdi was saying, I'm not saying he's saying this, it's almost as if he was saying the only reason I'm here is to encourage you to not vote for Genocide Joe, because he had a great, amazing presentation, and it all just led to this. And many people are like, well, voting's a hoax anyway. Many people think that, so.
One second.
Yeah.
I think one thing people need to understand is that Sami Hamdi's thesis for Muslims to get into action is not voting.
Yeah.
Not voting. It's not anything one specific. If you heard the lectures repeatedly, he was talking about this Algerian word called skara, right? It's called agitation.
Yeah.
If something's hurting, something's bothering them, keep doing that.
Yep. Be the thorn.
Right? And it's not that he's there to defend democracy and all of its, problems and stuff, and that it's some kind of vehicle for your solution or something like that. We all know what the solution to the problem is. It's that a Muslim army goes and confronts Israel with its weapons, with its own army, right? But the problem is that most of us don't have that capability, nor do we have any kind of ability to even influence that in any kind of serious amount of manner, unless you want to go to an embassy in March and tell them that, hey, bring your Muslim army to Israel or to Palestine.
What else can you do after that?
You can have a million people do that, and that's not going to make a difference.
I don't. Yeah, I was going to say I don't think that he's even saying you can't do that. I think the portion of voting, it only comes in under the heading of what his general theme was, is that we can't sit by and do nothing. You have to keep moving. We cannot just sit idle, right? And at the moment, when the reason why I believe it came out here is because we're talking about individual actions, right? Individuals don't have the authority to move militaries, right? Now, if you want to go and say, and to be honest, it's not even about voting. It's just telling them because they believe that you have power to change something.
Yeah.
So if they believe that in their minds, just saying alone that I'm not going to vote is enough to harm them, agitate them. Even if you have no intention of voting at all, just advocating saying, I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden simply for the fact that he is a genocide maniac.
Yeah.
I mean,
and just calling him Genocide Joe.
Yeah, Genocide Joe. And so, but he's not saying that you can't do what Sim just mentioned. Exactly. If you want to go petition in front of Muslim embassies and say, mobilize your armies, he's saying, yeah, fine, go do that too. Yeah. It's not one or the other.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sheikh Omar. I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, what I was going to say is what you alluded to earlier. I think everyone knows what the solution is. There's no disagreement on that. No one doesn't know what the solution is. And it's pretty, I mean, to put it in simple terms, is the solution is for the Muslim countries to be united under one leadership and be able to defend the honor of Muslims wherever that they may be suffering. That's in a perfect world, right? That's the solution. We all know that. But what do we do? I think that's the main question. The $1 million question is, what do we do until we get there?
Yeah.
Do I just sit at home and watch TV and just wonder what I should do? Or do I do what I can to help us get there?
Yeah. And what you can, that's the main point.
Is dua enough?
No, but not only that, guys.
I mean, that's the whole thing. Because
but hold on. Yeah. If anyone came to any of the talks that were done, and if that's the only thing they got out of it, then they missed the entire point.
That's true.
Because that was never the reason why we had invited him. If you did not feel motivated after the talk, you missed the point. If you didn't learn anything from the history, you missed the point. If your whole intention was there to attend and see how I'm gonna grill him during the Q&A after his presentation, if that's the intention you came with, then I'm sorry, you missed the point. You were not the intended audience. And I'm looking in the camera and telling you, and you know who you are.
So check this out. Look, you know what I gathered from this, and I may be wrong, but what I gathered from this is that he's here from overseas. He's here on this tour, if you want to say. He has to give the safest way to start with Muslims, to make them empowered, to let them know, number one, that they're not weak, that they're powerful, because he kept on driving that. Now, not everybody took it that way. Everybody took it in the way of, you're only powerful if you vote. Not everybody took it that way. It's, you have to use whatever you have in your means. But even on that very superficial level, I believe that he was here on a mission to change the mindset of Muslims on whatever level they're at. But since elections are coming up, he obviously utilized that opportunity to let you and let the individual know and let all the people attending know that this is the safest way to actually cause some agitation, right?
So you know what? I'm going to link a previous guest that we had on the show.
Yes, sir.
Brother Yaqub, right? From we were talking about the Ottoman history. Yeah. And one thing that we learned about the Ottoman history is that people sometimes often over-romanticize how perfectly Islamic it was. Meaning, and it's not that he was highlighting that in a negative way, but there are times and circumstances in the ummah where a leader is or people are faced with tough decisions.
Of course.
To defend and to, we just don't have an option. But you have to do something, right? And so if you and so he talks about that in the Ottoman history. And the reason why I mention that is because we've been in these kinds of positions before. And the ummah had to make tough decisions like this before. Yeah. And so I think if you connect that with what he's saying, especially considering people who influenced him, like Izzat Begovic, right? And how they had to make decisions in that heat of the moment that would preserve the blood of Muslims, that would allow them to fight another day. Right? Like right now, what he's arguing from is a position of desperation. If we don't do anything, we're going to die. Yeah. Right? At least this way we can live to fight another day. Yeah. We can regroup. Yeah. We can re-strategize. But if you do nothing, we don't have the luxury of doing nothing at the moment.
Yeah. At a critical point in the Reconquista, the expulsion of Muslims in Spain, the Ottomans were a young empire. Yeah. They were very small. True. And they didn't have the capability to come to the defense of the Muslims in Spain, in Andalus. And all they could do literally at that point was open up their borders and let the Muslims come from Spain and settle over there. Yeah. And they absorbed a lot of the brains, all the people who were in the intelligentsia and the and all kinds of thinkers from that region. And but that's not to absolve. We're not making a parallel between our crooked rulers and a new Ottoman Khilafah. We're talking about these guys are on a whole nother level scumbags because they don't even do the least amount.
Correct.
They don't. Oh, they do zero, like grand total zero.
They actually do the opposite. They help the oppressor.
Hey, they had an emergency summit that we talked about.
But that's a great point that he made, is because the reason why the Ottomans could not was to preserve their own Dawla, their own state. If they got involved in that, they had many other challenges. Like they had just got over the Mongols were threatening in the Sultan, the Byzantine Empire was also on their necks. Right, it was not easy for them to leave. They would have lost everything.
They barely had a navy.
Yeah,
they would not have.
There was no navy, I don't think, at the time. Yeah. They did. They actually had one. Yeah, they had one.
At this time, it's not about him as a person or as a personality. It's about the message that's delivered. Yeah. We're 2 months into this conflict now, and I feel that there is some fatigue even within the Muslim community, where they stop paying attention. And I think it's not an accident that you have, on the podcast that you did with him, you have about 27,000 views.
50,000.
50,000.
Or 50,000.
The first
views.
one, yeah. First one.
I mean, the one that we did
27,000
over the weekend collectively, it's close to 30,000. Yeah. It's not that people are not paying attention to the message. It's about the message. I don't think. Forget about him. You're not gonna find any scholar or any movement that you're gonna agree with 100%.
Of course.
You're not gonna do that. Yeah. You're not gonna find someone.
Not in history, and it's not gonna happen now.
It's not gonna happen. Yeah. So take all the positive that you can from him, and the message that you're confused about, ignore that.
If there's one thing that I think I took away from this, is that the idea that there's an absolute way, like all or nothing way, it's just not feasible. We look at history, we look at our current situation, we're forced with tough decisions. We have to sometimes, use alternative ways in order to achieve our goals, right? Yeah. I'm not saying the Quran and Hadith don't mean anything, but what I'm saying is that by the principle of necessity and surviving and the call to preserve your lives, many things or many rulings change depending on that. And this is no exception, right? Muslim lives. And considering, just talking about that for a moment, Sim, I just wanted to highlight this. A guest that we've had on the show, Hassan Shibli, he's very adamant about posting about not voting for Joe Biden. Yeah. Basically, he's saying that he has a huge campaign going on Twitter. Like, he's just putting it out there on the social media. And oddly enough, he's been receiving like death threats and to his office and all this stuff. And this shows you how much it bothers them. Because, people, opponents of what the idea of saying you're not going to vote, right? They're saying, oh, it doesn't mean anything. The Muslims really don't mean anything. Your vote doesn't mean inconsequential. While that may be true, but it bothers them hearing that we're not going to vote, to the point where brothers who are vocal about it are getting death threats.
Yeah. So you know why look, even on the level of raising a certain type of awareness, I was walking today, I was listening to the Jimmy Dore show. Jimmy Dore had a special segment on him, on Hassan Shibli, and the whatever they refer to the initiative of not voting for Joe Biden with a certain title. But he's talking about it. All these people are talking. It's gotten like throughout the podcast spectrum, just on YouTube and Rumble, it's already got millions of views. And that is a different type of agitation that Muslims haven't actually dealt with before and have done before. So nobody's saying that this is the ultimate solution. It's that people are working in their capacity to cause this type of agitation. It raises awareness. People, dude, even in jails, I was telling you guys even before the show, I think it was the Statesville facility. Statesville is still open, right? Statesville?
Yeah.
Right? They have averagely every month 60 inmates becoming Muslim. 60 inmates. So a brother had called me today and he said, hey man, I want to get somebody on the show who's a chaplain in the prison. So I forwarded Rami and Sur's information to him because they need much more material than you. And he said, there's a thing that people aren't talking about. It's like kind of coming out now. Like Gaza is bringing out so many things. That the treatment of Muslim inmates in this jail is like completely it's completely biased against them, where all of the inmates can see when someone becomes Muslim that the treatment of them changes because they're growing so fast, and it almost feels like a threat that's occurring even in jails. Like how this emergence happening is growing more and more. So outside of jail, which is a world on its own, inside of jail is a completely different world, right? If you talk to Muslims that were in jail, just kind of on a tangent, and Umair Hasib can tell you more about this inshallah too, but people who are in jail, they have a certain culture and they have a certain understanding of what Islam is based on their environment, which is in prison, and preserving Islam and reading books on Islam and having khatibs and durus, people coming in, and they come out to the world, the civilian world, and all the Muslims are just like not what they expected it to be, even though they're in the same state.
But Brother Ahmad mentions this.
Yeah.
He said a very profound point today. If the Muslims in the outside world, outside of prison, were like the Muslims in prison,
yes, sir,
we would have solved the majority of our issues.
He did say that.
Because they have this. Yeah, go ahead.
Imagine someone assaulting you, your family, and they're much more powerful than you. Wouldn't you do everything in your power? At least I'm going to take out this guy's eye. He may end up killing me and my family, but I'm going to do something in whichever little capacity I can. Just claw your scratch or anything.
Pull a Mike Tyson bite.
I will not make it easy on him.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea is this, right? Like, even just go back to our elementary school days, right? Yeah. When you had a bully, even if you knew that you were going to get beat up, you wanted to give that bully the toughest time so that he would think, twice about doing it again, because there would be easier low-hanging fruits to deal with, right? Although I'm not saying you could beat up the bully, but that bully was definitely aware that you pushed back.
Yeah.
And people always work on self-interest. Why would you risk potential harm to yourself when you could just bully somebody else who would not gonna do anything to you, right? So in the same principle, right, that yes, we're not saying go and fight them. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying, though, is that the little things that we're talking about, the tweets that you make, the hashtags that you put in, the protests that you go to, saying that you're not going to vote for Genocide Joe, things like this collectively, it's like poking at the bully. Yeah. It's just agitating him. So he's gonna say, all right, I don't want to mess with these guys. Yeah. It's just too much work for me to mess with them. Not that I can't beat them, but I just don't want to. It's just too much work for me.
Yeah,
I think that's what the overall message was. Do what you can, whether it's reposting, using Twitter, using social media, boycotting, and all of those things, whatever that you can. But I want to bring it back to the thing that you talked about. There's a whole movement about not voting for the current president, right? And I feel like it is already having an impact. I don't know if it has to do with this or not, but if you recall, this news came out yesterday that Biden had said that he considered not running, and the only reason he's running is because Trump is running. So
basically, he wants to retire.
No, basically, the way I see it, or this is my reading into it, or I could be wrong. He's already opening a door for him to exit the stage because of the situation that the former president is in with multiple charges and multiple cases pending. The chances of him is, even though he has the support, he's the front runner and all those things. Who knows what's going to happen until next year? So in the event that he's not the person for the Republican Party, this guy says, that's the only reason I ran. Now I don't have to run anymore.
When I read that this morning, you reminded me of, when we used to joke around and be like, oh, they're going to fire you. Look, I'm going to quit before they fire me. It's one of those.
Yeah, but you know the thing I think about too is that I always wonder about this. I have to imagine that a lot of these people that run for office, they spend so much of their life in the public eye, right? A lot of times they're not, like, they get used to the power. They get used to the notoriety. But eventually, I guess when they're facing their own mortality, they want to think about their legacy. Like, all these presidents have, like, the Ronald Reagan Library, this center, Carter Front, this center, all that, right?
Genocide Joe.
Yeah, and then imagine ending a 40-year career to be known as the person who does genocide.
Jeez.
Like, everything
Look at that humiliation, though.
Yeah, so obviously, I'm sure he's concerned about what his legacy is going to be when he gets out of office, right? He's going to be known as that guy that allowed babies to be bombed, right? Allow women to be killed, innocents to be,
and spread lies about 40 babies being beheaded.
Yeah, because make no mistake about it, history is going to talk about this.
Oh, yeah.
History is going to mention the days, like, how we say today, how the hell did Nazi Germany allow them to just, how did that happen? Right? They're going to say the same thing about Americans. How do they allow a genocide to happen like this? How do they sit back and all these people making comments like, give them hell, bomb them, smithereens.
Not only sit back, they supported it, they funded it.
Exactly.
They are actively took part in it.
Yeah. So I think that combined with the idea of a legacy, I think it has to be on his mind. Like, it has to be on his mind that, oh man, when I get out of office, man, people are really going to think lowly of me, right? 40 years of my life I dedicated to civil service, and all I'm remembered for is genociding babies.
Genocide Joe.
When this thing all started, I was just thinking about, you guys remember when I was talking about boycotts and stuff like that, and how we could leverage pressure. And I started messaging everyone I could possibly know, anyone who has even a little bit of influence. I'm like, hey, let's put pressure on them. Use the idea of boycotts to get the Muslim sentiment behind boycotting as many American and Israeli companies as possible. My idea was just American companies in general that have a foothold in the Muslim world. Yeah. Not a single person replied, and I felt like a fool. Because it was just, the message was left on read, and no one bothered sharing or saying anything in regards to boycott, because I understand it. I know, because boycotts are an old idea. They're sometimes seemed as ineffective. But now we saw just with the report yesterday, Starbucks loses $11 billion.
Oh, jeez.
$11 billion.
Solely from this?
Over 11 days of droughts. Like, I'm saying, people not coming to the store, but they're saying that so far the boycotts have collectively cost them
Gaza boycotts?
$11 billion. I don't know if it's just Gaza itself, but the idea that they support Israel, the conscious effort,
the support for Israel.
Support for Israel. And based on that, people have decided to.
So let's read the article.
Move away.
Wow, that's impressive.
This is in Newsweek, by the way. It's not like some backwater publication, and it's published everywhere.
Not the stuff that Sheikh Ahmed reads.
Starbucks Corporation's recent weeks have been fraught with turmoil as a combination of boycotts, staff strikes, and a lukewarm holiday promotion led to $10.98 billion decline in market value. While the iconic coffee chain's struggles are multifaceted, including a less cheerful Red Cup Day and global political tensions spilling into its cafes, the undercurrent of discontent signals a challenging brew for the company's future, an industry analyst has said. The stock market has weighed heavily on Starbucks as it grapples with complex societal issues, prompting investors to retreat and driving its shares into their longest losing streak since its 1992 initial public offering within the span of 19 calendar days since.
That's impressive.
It's November 16th.
The little shit that went off my head when I saw these stock prices plummeting.
I know. I was going to say, Mort's like, it's time to buy.
Yeah,
What's your thing?
I was thinking, I'm like, oh man, time to still blood in the water. But I'm like, A'udhu billah, bro. The little shit down was off of my head, bro. Like,
I have a
buy.
I have a question for the resident scholar here. So, can you buy the stocks now?
How about we buy and become majority shareholders and shut it down? Like, it's the only.
What's the ruling on that?
No, look. If you're really seriously asking a question.
Yes, because I heard this question asked over the weekend.
Yeah. Stock
really?
prices are going to.
Someone asked.
Yeah.
No, stock prices are going to fall, and that's definitely going to be a test for you from Allah, because one of the principles is based on, forget about the minor difference of opinion if investing in stocks are allowed or not allowed, but the majority of Muslim contemporary scholars, including Amja and many others, that say that it's allowed Islamically. You have to know where your money is going to make sure it's not going to something haram. That's by default. If you're investing in something with all the other conditions that aren't in average transactions, business transactions, which is stocks, you just have to make sure that you're not directly funding something, or your money's not directly involved in something that's haram. And I think Muslims are in full agreement that if you have a direct hand in investing in something that openly says that it's going to be aiding Israel, that's.
You know what I wish we could do? I wish we could have, because there are some brilliant Muslim finance guys out there.
Yeah.
I wish we could identify, for example, in our area we have a local hotspot. I'm sure there's one in New York too called Qahwa House, right? Yeah. And it's always busy. It's clearly profitable, right? But maybe instead of offer an alternative for people who want to invest, because people obviously invest in Starbucks not because they're like, oh, I love coffee, I'm behind the brand, right? Mm-hmm. No, they want profits, right? So maybe if these finance guys can identify companies, like Muslim companies, that are pro-Palestinian, that are Muslim-run, have Muslim ethical values, and say, okay, we approach them and say, hey, we want to take this company public. We want to be able to offer and help them and allow Muslims to invest.
Aren't there Wahed invest and stuff? That's what they do?
No, I think they just focus on what halal companies are, but I don't think they help companies come up to have an IPO or stuff like that.
That are strictly pro-Palestinian.
I'm saying or support Muslim issues, right? That are conscious of Muslim issues, that they're vetted.
That are willing to.
Yeah, meaning they're vetted and they know and they can share. Because corporations have a different stand. They can donate money to anywhere, to anything. They can have, they're a lot more powerful in that sense. Especially when you have an open board, you have all these kind of things. Especially if you help them grow. Initial public offerings or IPOs or SPACs. These things can generate billions of dollars. Right? And you're talking about a healthy avenue for Muslims to invest, not only locally, domestically, but even foreign, right? And this helps not only the Muslim businessman, it gives them incentive, it gives other Muslims incentive to say, hey, we're going to open businesses that support Muslim causes. And it gives people the incentive to say, hey, listen, if we support them, we can get share options and obviously get very wealthy with it too as well, right? Because I go back to this why, I don't have it all figured out, but what I'm saying is that by human nature, you have to give people alternatives. Yeah. Right? You have to be able to do so.
Agreed. Hey, the idea, I think it makes me laugh because people think that, while everyone is doing this boycott of Starbucks and their value is going down, I'm going to invest in it and it's going to lose steam and the value will come back up. As if you didn't understand, as a Muslim, you understand this idea of barakah, and you think you're tricking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh, you know what, I'm making money, I'm going to make tens of thousands of dollars, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make you seem like you won in this short-term gain, but then later in life pull the rug underneath you and cause you incredible.
That money can be a source of you being miserable.
Yeah.
But I'm going to build a chandelier, brother, in the masjid.
The idea of barakah is just something that you can't even wrap your mind around because there's so many different possibilities that can happen from it. And people think that, I'm going to outwit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by circumventing certain prohibitions or things that are in the gray area. And you find yourself
it's not that type of game, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
But
it's not that type of game.
I heard as long as your intention is good, it should be okay.
Well, is your intention to invest in Starbucks and give all the profits to to
My,
Gaza,
my intention would be to give all the profits to, let's say, a popular podcast.
You know,
in that case,
since he's talking about that, I had a kind of a sinister idea.
Sinister.
No, I mean, but the idea was to give profit and give it to Palestine. But I was gonna create like pro-Israeli sweatshirts. And like, you know, basically, like, for example,
reverse psychology.
No, like Muslims for Zionism, right? And then like have them, and or like, you know, like Arab or something that some Zionists would buy, right? And then just take all the money and then donate it to Palestine and show them, hey, look, guys, how we donated to Palestine. All the idiots bought the shirt, you know? Because it'd be kind of funny, right? You kind of dupe at the same time. Like, imagine you make something trending, like some kind of shirt or button, right? And all the Zionists buy it. And they're backing you with billions of dollars, and you say, hey, we're going to donate our money to Palestine, right? But I think the reality, though, is that aside, they're not dumb people either, right? And
they're shrinking by the day.
Yeah, and the thing is that, like, we have, and like I said, whatever it is, we don't have a solution here. We're just talking about ideas, right? We're not finance guys. But I'm sure there are crafty ways. If Muslims, I think coming back to what Sim was mentioning, is that if Muslims really want to collaborate, if you really want to, like, was serious, like responding to a simple message, like about, you know, boycotting or, you know, strategizing on how we can take advantage of the situation, the commitment and the effort has to be there. But if we do, there are plenty of ways that we can do things that would be helpful for Palestine and also profitable for Muslims as well too. It doesn't have to always be one or the other.
Yeah. And you know, another point, what Sami Hamdi said, which was profound. I always thought about this. I never knew how to articulate or even just think about it properly. Was something as simple as, when it comes to leaders, they're in this life of hyper paranoia. It's what you have in your daily life of some type of anxiety you may have about something, about your wealth, about your family or whatever, and just stack like that 100 times. And that's basically what it is, you know? And some of the reasons why they have fallouts with each other, I'm talking about world leaders, is for very human reasons, you know, and even amongst themselves and amongst their own party, amongst their own families, amongst their own monarchy. And it's as if, coming back to the whole microcosm idea, right? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroys a nation, do you remember when he was talking about this too? He never destroyed them when they were poor. It was when they came to a level when Allah tested them, when they had everything they ever needed.
SubhanAllah.
And they still rejected Allah. That's when Allah took them, right? Allah never takes a people when they're in poverty, right? He never takes them when they're in poverty.
Because they never think it's coming.
You know, now it's too, like, who's going to take me now? I have everything, right? And the means that Allah gave you becomes a source of your lordship now, right? So
I don't know. I'm just thinking about this. It's just such a comical thing in my head. Do you know the mention of like the Ya'juj and Ma'juj, how they're going to take everything over and they're going to start firing arrows at the sky?
Yeah.
Like, you see, like, this is what I feel like these Muslims are trying to do. Like they're trying to fool God. Like, you can actually harm something by doing this, right? Like, who are you fooling? Like, firing arrows at the sky is not going to do anything for you, right? It's just so silly, right? And I think, like, but I think that comes down to the original point, right? That Sim was mentioning, that you can't fool anybody. You can't fool your intentions. Allah knows what your intention is. You can't say, you know, and claim that you're going to be doing these things and that, you know, and you're going to help the Palestinians, but you're also going to profit a little bit. You can't have two different intentions, right? Your intention has to be clear about what it is and why you're doing it. And if Allah blesses you in the process, He does. If He doesn't, then He doesn't. But either way, alhamdulillah, because the greater reward is what the intention is started with, right? That I'm going to do this for the sake of my brothers. I'm going to do it because the Muslims are suffering. I want to ease the suffering of my brothers, and that's the reason why I'm doing it. If you have that intention, Allah ultimately decides. Because here's the thing: even if you tried to buy the Starbucks stocks, right, and then thought you were going to make money later on, Allah could take all that money away tomorrow. Even if it did rise up to like a couple million, whatever, right? You could lose that money tomorrow. Or you could die before you even get a chance to spend it, or even donate it if that was your true intention, right? Would you be willing to die with that? I mean, how arrogant of you to know that the future is guaranteed for you? How arrogant is that?
Yeah.
If anything you should learn from this conflict is nothing is guaranteed to you.
Nothing is. Nothing.
Israel is telling Palestinians to go to a safe zone, and I want to show you guys the clip of this safe zone, and the Israeli spokesperson or spokeswoman directing this advice. Here we go.
Israel made sure there is a place for the people of Gaza to have their shelters. There is a place in Gaza called the Muassi. The Muassi is the place where they all can have shelters. Together with international organizations, we created shelters for the Palestinian people. So you cannot say Israel is not, facilitating that. Together with humanitarian aid.
This is where she's talking about. A desolate wasteland of sand dunes next to the Mediterranean Sea.
No shame.
It's a trash yard.
There are no aid agency tents. There are no food kitchens. There is no help here. Boys.
So this is the kind of crap as they're starting to bomb southern Gaza now. They've made all these different corridors. The line, at least the map, looks like it looks like a
corn maze.
It looks like it looks like a maze. Like you're all these tiny little corridors, and you're supposed to flee from one corridor to another. Is there supposed to be bombing? And in itself, it's the obvious question is like, okay, if your intended mission is to attack Hamas, wouldn't Hamas see that you're going to bomb that corridor and escape to the other corridor? Like, what's the whole purpose of this?
No, they use humans as shields. That's why.
Yeah. But to Sim's point though, exactly right. Like it makes, from a military intelligence perspective, it makes zero sense to publish where you're going to be bombing.
You know when I see stuff like this, even when I heard about the Khan Yunis and the evacuation of Khan Yunis, they're telling everybody what they're going to do. They're telling the whole world what they're going to do. And same thing, why would Hamas go there if if they're making that announcement? But it tells you the level of weakness. Like there's more levels to this. Levels are being peeled away. There's layers that we're peeling away as this goes on for our rectification and things that we're learning. It's increasing our basira. But it's also showing how the audacity of these people is, no matter how stupid they look with these things. And the world is going to uncover it. They're just going to keep doing it. They're going to keep doing it. And the other peel is that it's so ridiculous, people are just still going to, the world arena is just going to keep watching as they peel these layers.
But I have a question. So we're more than 2 months, or what is it now? We're almost 2 months to the date. Tomorrow is the 7th, right? We're almost 2 months into this. The stated objective was to destroy Hamas, right? So what's the progress on that?
What do they kill, like 70 Hamas members so far?
I think if you want to talk about like a high level Hamas members, maybe like less than 7.
Yeah, I'm saying all together.
I don't know.
It's less than 100.
We don't know the numbers, but the point being is that I think what he's asking is that the objective was to completely eliminate Hamas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottom line is they're nowhere near that.
I'm glad you brought this up, actually.
Yeah. This is what we're saying, because when we talk about Israel winning, they are winning. They're winning the war against civilians. Yeah. They're not winning the war against the Hamas people. And the longer this goes on, the more the IDF gets exposed and the Israeli nature gets exposed. Just to bring it back on that, Sim, I had sent you a WhatsApp message, a tweet, basically just to the rabbi for the IDF that was recently appointed. This is a guy, and I'll have Sim pull it up, but I'm gonna read this out. A man that says this: although intercourse with a female Gentile is very grave, it's very grave. It was permitted during wartime, under the conditions it stipulated, out of consideration for soldiers' quote unquote difficulties. He wrote, and since our concern is the success of the collective in the war, the Torah permitted soldiers to satisfy the evil urge under the conditions it stipulated for the sake of the collective's success. And this is the chief rabbi of the IDF. Okay, he's justifying the violation of women from religious scriptures, and this is the spiritual authority for the IDF members. Now think about that for a moment. For months, we've been hearing about they rape the Palestinians, or Hamas fighters have raped. They broke pelvis bones. They rape so rampantly that they even broke the pelvic bones of women, and they're so savage. We're even hearing they even raped dead corpses of men. So this is what they're alleging right now, right? They're just saying every day it's a new rape thing, but in front of their eyes. And by the way, Hamas has categorically rejected it.
Yeah.
Whether it's true or not, Allahu alam. But we're saying that they are saying they don't do it, and they haven't done it, and I'm inclined to believe it. Why? Because they've lied before about what they've done, right? I mean, the media, the Israeli media has lied about what Hamas has done before. However, this is a rabbi appointed who on record has quoted scripture justifying the rape of Gentiles. For those who don't know who Gentiles are, basically non-Jews, okay, goyim. So they've twisted the narrative so much that the evidence of their aggression is in front of your eyes, in front of their eyes, but yet you're pinning what they do onto the victims.
No, but I'm not here to talk about what Hamas did, what Hamas didn't do. I want to look at this from the Israeli perspective. My goal is to destroy this terrorist organization. Yeah. Okay, U.S. called it a terrorist organization. EU called it a terrorist. Let's go with that. I'm 2 months in. When am I going to meet my objectives? What are my objectives? My stated objectives, I've told the whole world this is what I do. What's my progress report on this?
Here we go. Here's your answer.
Wow.
And when like, are there certain checkpoints that I'm meeting? Certain goals that I'm achieving towards my ultimate goal? Like, where am I on that?
Here we go.
Damn. And I think
so. The Intercept released a article where Netanyahu explains his goal for Gaza. He wants to thin the population to a minimum. Now he's saying it explicitly now. This is how pathetic Muslims are and Muslim governments are, specifically, that he's telling you to your face that our goal is to thin the population of Gaza to a minimum.
What do they call that? Mowing the lawn?
Yeah. Well, it's genocide, but yeah, that's one of the terms.
It's a term they use. They call it mowing the lawn.
Yeah. But let's go back to this. The article is written by Ryan Grimm. I almost said Glenn Greenwald. He no longer works there.
What happened to him?
They got into a big fight. It's a big story. It's a long story. But anyway, Ryan Grimm writes this piece. I spoke to Breaking Point's co-host Crystal Ball about my new book. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has tasked his top advisor Ron Dermer, the Minister of Strategic Affairs, with designing plans to thin the Palestinian population in the Gaza Strip to a minimum, according to a bombshell new report in an Israeli newspaper founded by late Republican billionaire Sheldon Adelson. The outlet Israel Hayom is considered to be something of an official organ for Netanyahu. It reported that the plan has two main elements. The first would use the pressure of the war and humanitarian crisis to persuade Egypt to allow refugees to flow to other Arab countries, and the second would open up sea routes so that Israel allows a mass escape to European and African countries. Dermer, who is originally from Miami, is a Netanyahu confidant and was previously Israeli ambassador to the United States and enjoys close relations with many members of Congress. The plan to ethnically cleanse Gaza of Palestinian faces some internal resistance from less hardline members of Netanyahu's cabinet, according to Israel Hayom. Now, this is what I'm talking about. There's many different messages you hear when you hear political figures, especially from Israel or in any country, about when it comes to Israel, you hear about things about two-state solutions, that there's a different side in Israel that wants a two-state solution, and there's all these different voices in Israel. But ultimately, what you look at is the actions of the state.
Yeah.
Where is the state moving towards? And if you have any sense, if you have even a small bit of intelligence, you could see that they don't want anything like that. they're not working towards that in the least.
They have no intention.
So isn't saying thinning the population, isn't that just another code word for genocide?
Of course.
Yeah,
ethnic cleansing.
It's a nicer way of saying it.
Yeah, it's a nice way of saying ethnic cleansing.
Yeah.
We want to ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip from Palestinians. Yeah. And these are the same people that will say, no, we assure you Israel is doing everything to minimize civilian casualties and minimize the harm done to Palestinians. And here they're blatantly telling you that they want to either they want to thin the Palestinian population either by killing them or by forcing them into exile.
Currently, with the amount of people they've killed in Gaza, they've killed effectively 1% of the population of Gaza. Now, if you took that and put that against the United States and said you killed 1 million, you killed 1% of the United States, that's like 2 million. Or 1.5 to 2 million, something like that, of the United States population. That's effectively what Israel did in Gaza.
That's all the Muslim vote.
And this is just the beginning. This is not even. They want to go and make sure that this is happening for months now.
Oh,
they want to extend this genocide for months.
Not only that, I think there's been many leaked documents and strategists who have said that Gaza is only the beginning. They want things like the Sinai. They want Lebanon, as far as Syria, parts of Iraq. This is the beginning of what their plan really is. And in many ways, they're testing the water. They're pushing further and further every time they get in this conflict. Like even now, they're testing out weapons. I mean, America sent bunker busters that I believe are classified as you can't use in the Geneva Convention, right? But they're using bunker busters against a civilian population. Yeah. And if they get away with that, they could easily use that same force.
Folks, these are 2,000-pound bombs.
Like a few of them are equal like atomic bomb. Like if you put them together.
Yeah.
Like you can. I mean, I'm not talking about the fallout.
The
minus
TNT.
the nuclear, but I'm saying the impact of that.
Yeah, each one. I think the price is so ridiculous.
Like so what we're saying is that if they get it done here in Palestine, right, and they have a precedence now to use it, what would stop them from using it in the Sinai or in Lebanon or in Syria or in Iraq? What would stop them?
But how evil
the
is
Muslim leadership.
So the OIC?
Israel Today.
There'll be another emergency summit.
Israel Today and other Israeli media are also reporting on a plan being pushed with Congress that would condition aid to Arab nations on their willingness to accept Palestinian refugees. The plan even proposes specific numbers of refugees for each country. Egypt would take 1 million Palestinians. 500,000 would go to Turkey, and a 250,000 would go to Yemen and Iraq. So they've already planned the idea of ethnically cleansing Gaza of Palestinians, and they're now planning on creating an incentive program for various countries. And for Israelis, they have they're a very wealthy country. They can totally give all these countries,
they would have America foot the bill.
Yeah, and guys like Shahid Bolson will say, you know what, these countries are going to do so much better. They're going to receive, because they're all operating out of self-interest, right? So they're going to do so much better with taking in all these refugees, and then they're going to have a much more better financial situation. Look at Lebanon; their economy's in the tanks.
So I would say this. I would say this. I'd push back on that narrative that they're going to do so much better. What would prevent Israel from starting a war with Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, Iraq? What would stop them? The very places you're putting in refugees, they would have no problem going to war with them. As a matter of fact, even I think part of this plan, I think some other alternatives are the ones that are remaining in Palestine, specifically in Gaza, are going to be confined to a very small area with a buffer zone. And they want to carve that out of the Sinai on the Egyptian side. They want to be able to do that. Is that going to happen? I don't know. But I'm saying even the idea of talking about it, the brazenness of it, right? And saying, hey, we're willing to carve out, kill all them off, deport them in different countries, and then carve out a piece of another country and confine them to that, and the entire Gaza Strip will be a buffer zone between us and them.
No, so there's two things. It's so evil, like sinister is not even the right word. So evil that all of this that's happening right now in Gaza, it just seems to be an experiment. That's kind of like what I'm seeing with all this. The other is, you mentioned something. This may seem elementary, Mort, but you said something. You said that they're willing to take in these refugees, so they won't have a problem also killing and bombing these other borders of these countries. Why? What is leading you to believe? And I agree with you, but if you had to spell it out for somebody, why is it that they're not going to have a problem if?
I mean, I think Palestine just sets a precedence, right? The world is witnessing a genocide. The world they clearly can demonstrate that they've controlled the narrative about whatever they're doing. They can just say, oh, you know what? Think about this. Let's say they put these people in 25,000 in Egypt, 500,000 in Iraq, or another 30,000, whatever, in Lebanon or Syria, right? Just as they have said that, or alluded to, that every single Palestinian is Hamas, without officially saying it, but by the way they're attacking them, they all are Hamas and future Hamas members, according to them. What is to stopping them from saying that, oh, those people that migrated to these areas,
I'm sorry,
these people that migrated to these areas are Hamas supporters.
Yes.
They're regrouping under the guise of Hamas. We have to defend. We have every right to defend our land. We're preemptively taking it out. So we're going to bomb Syria. We're going to bomb Lebanon. We're going to bomb Iraq. We're going to bomb the Sinai because we have the right to do it. Look, we did it in Gaza. Look how good it turned out for us then. We stop any attacks there. We want to preemptively stop it. And so they're setting a precedence for this.
Yeah. So the other question I have for you guys, again, this is coming back full circle. I asked this question the first week of when this genocide began. What is making these people tick, allowing them to continue with this style and with this method of genocide when they know what the backlash is going to be? They know that the whole world is against them now. A majority of the world doesn't believe their narrative. The Muslim world never really believed their narrative. The Western countries are no longer believing this narrative, but they want to continue on this trajectory and keep going when they thrive on the public opinion and the PR of people in the West. So why is it that they're going to keep going and using this as an experiment?
Fundamentally, Israel is a country that is mentally deranged. The reason why is it's not just like a ad hominem. This is a country that has lied so much that it's begun to believe its lies. Mm-hmm. Like, there's one thing, like if you have a lie here and there, you know.
Which
but what the problem with Israel is that it's lied so much and fundamentally about every single thing related to this conflict that they've begun to believe in their lies and they've begun to believe their power over America and the world, and that their ability to control narratives, and they do have significant amount of control. There's no doubt about that. The idea that you can see people on Instagram and Facebook, their reach has been significantly lowered. Anything related to Palestine, you're barely getting any views. You know that someone, Mark Zuckerberg and his cronies over there, have turned on the algorithm knob. It's like a real life Truman Show, because they've architected this idea that they can control the way people think by controlling the media, and fundamentally they do have that level of control over that, and it could be a significant level of control over that. But I think this will be their demise, because they've still underestimated.
This will be their demise.
Their demise is basic.
This conflict and this genocide.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%.
The overconfidence.
They've given an entire generation of young people who were completely uninformed about this. They made them completely informed, and people are going to be fighting for this till the rest of their lives if this is not solved.
So what they've done is they've created an entire new generation of freedom fighters and activists, who are galvanized, and they are directing all of their efforts, to target this issue.
people become so full of themselves to a point where they self-destruct. But my next question is then, if Israel is, and I personally believe this is the downfall of Israel, it's just the beginning of the beginning, I think. But what does that mean for America now?
No, but before you get to that, even the video clip that you showed, I think it was from Sky News.
Yeah.
The fact that they are fact-checking the ambassador is something that would not have happened in any of the it never happened in the previous conflicts.
Right.
The reason why it's happening now is because of the actions of the people across the world that no longer believe in the false narrative that has been going on.
So what's happened that Israel has parroted...
Hold on. The other thing is, this other news came out late yesterday or early today. There's at least 40 interns in the White House, that actually signed a letter and gave it to the president and the vice president saying that...
From the State Department, right?
collectively in the Biden administration, I think.
It says the administration. I don't think it specifies which one.
So aides that,
Yeah, the calling for a permanent ceasefire, and they say, and they accuse the administration of ignoring the pleas of the American people. This is something that is unheard of before. What do they have to do with anything? They're just interns there.
So I think it's gotten to a point that Israel has lied so much that even the media, in order to preserve journalistic standards, have to push back. Otherwise, they're becoming... People are viewing them as just extensions of Israeli propaganda. Because people are witnessing reality, a different reality on social media, and they're beginning to hold these news organizations accountable, even anchors, and that's what we've seen in other cases, CNN and other places, right?
Yeah, even yesterday, CNN. Yeah.
Right, and so if they want to stay in business, if they want to be seen as credible, if they want to maintain journalistic standards, they're going to have to push back on narratives that are complete BS. Otherwise, people will no longer take them serious. Yeah. Their numbers are already dropping. People are not relying on mainstream news anymore, especially with regard to this conflict, right? Because they don't have the trust in them. They do this not because they want to, help for the Palestinians. No, they're afraid of losing their money and their viewership.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if I can just read a couple of lines from here, they say, "We, the undersigned, fall 2023 White House and Executive Office of the President interns, will no longer remain silent on the ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people." They also say, "We heed the voices of the American people and call on the administration to demand a permanent ceasefire." The interns wrote, "We are not the decision makers of today, but we aspire to be the leaders of tomorrow, and we will never forget how the pleas of the American people have been heard and thus far ignored."
Wow, that's kind of wow.
Nice I think at the very least, what we can say is that
there's a rumbling happening.
Pushback that was never seen in this country before, at least all the time I've been alive here, born and raised. We've never seen such pushback against the Israeli narrative in the media.
For sure.
And now with the help of social media, how that's also happening. And then there's also an effect happening that's unique to TikTok. You're finding people like just having, by their own admission, existential crises because they're, discovering about Islam, discovering about the conflict. They're reading, past letters and whatnot. And it's causing them to rethink everything they've been taught about Arabs, Muslims, the Middle East, just Israel, Palestine. I heard a guy today from Canada on TikTok who's not a Muslim say, I'm a Canadian, I'm not Muslim, but I can't wait for the Muslims to take over. He's like, in light of all this crazy, like, leftist stuff happening here and the divisiveness, I don't mind paying jizya. I mean, it's certainly a lot less than what they tax us right now. And
brilliant.
It does. And he said, "Isn't it odd that all these governments that rob you and corporations that rob you and steal from you, they're all against the Muslims?"
Wow, great observation.
Does anybody ever ask that question? Why all these people who push the degenerate stuff are against the Muslims? So he goes, "I'm not a Muslim, but I can't wait till they take over."
That's what I'm saying. That type of insight is beautiful.
Yeah, it kind of made me think differently, but yeah.
All right. You guys got anything else?
No, I mean, just a little bit about, since somebody wants to go, I want to keep going. Just one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Muslim leaders are trying to up the ante a little bit.
Yeah.
About Netanyahu, and the United States, but in specific, Netanyahu, where Erdogan was saying that he's going to be known as the butcher of Gaza.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I heard that you shouldn't be saying that because that's insulting
Anti-Semitic?
the name of a prophet.
Uh-huh.
That's what I heard.
What insulting the name of the prophet?
I'm not sure, but I think you should look into that. You shouldn't be saying Netanyahu.
What is he talking
about? I'll follow up with you on that after the show.
No, just say it.
I don't recall it right now.
Wait, what?
He just wants to call you on the spot. Anyways,
yeah. for his sake, let's call him by his name, Netanyahu.
Yes.
Yes. But so Erdogan's upping the ante a little bit by saying he's now going to be called or known as a butcher of Gaza. Also, many Muslims, I heard a little bit of rumblings here and there in multiple groups and a few people in person. Rumblings. Emergences that, hey, look, Putin went to MBS, he went to the Muslim world, and it seems like he's coming through now because he's having these talks with them, and, he's opening deals with them, and maybe if this shift happens, it'll be better than their shift that they had with America. And
he's coming to help Muslims.
Yes.
Just like how he did in Syria.
Thing, what do you think Erdogan, because he's calling him the butcher of Gaza, he's calling Netanyahu the butcher of Gaza, that something, do we have some hope?
There's two ways to interpret Erdogan. One is to believe his intent and that he is a God-fearing man and that his vision is for Islam and Muslims. Okay, in that regard, the only way to interpret his language and his inaction to do anything is that he believes he doesn't have enough support in Turkey, having survived a razor-thin election.
Mm-hmm. Or coalition with other surrounding government either.
And that he needs to build sentiment more in Turkey towards Islam and the interests of Islam and Muslims. So there's the good way to interpret him.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then there's the bad way to interpret him is that this is just lip service and that he doesn't really, in fact, care genuinely about the Palestinian people. Now, I can't understand, at least in my view, for the life of me, I can't understand why he can't do even at least a show of force. Maybe not go to war. Send out a couple Turkish vessels, just as a standoff. You're not gonna show that you're gonna go to war, but
test the water.
Just show your strength.
Yeah.
Do some kind of, even that's a bit provocative. That might be a bit too bold.
Deliver drones to Lebanon or Syria.
No. You were going to say other than the vessels?
Other than the vessels.
That's maybe too bold.
What else? You could cut off complete relations, and you could say that we don't have any relations with
shut down the pipeline that transmits oil.
Even by saying we have no more, and you stick up to it, we have no more association with Israel is a huge thing compared to everybody else.
Hold on. Everything that they're calling on the Arab states to do, for example, cutting off oil. He can do that.
Of course,
people don't realize this, but majority of Israeli oil comes from the pipeline that runs through Turkey from Baku, from Azerbaijan. That pipeline is what comes to.
And the natural gas comes from there too, right?
Yeah, I mean, no, it's the gasoline, bro. So what I'm saying is that alone can harm Israel, right? So there are steps that you can take to show without showing force by actually restricting goods that you're sending to them. Not to mention, it's not even just oil. There are videos of Turkish, made undershirts and garments for soldiers that have been delivered to Israel, right? Because Turkey they produce things like this, right?
Clothing,
exactly. So they are delivering these goods. So even stopping things like that, even though undershirts are insignificant, but it's a show of something. We say moving, like it's another annoyance, another exclamation or saying we don't want this, we're done, right? And I think that's why people get frustrated, because people are tired of just words.
Yeah.
This is the whole point of what Sami was here for. Words are not enough.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
And ultimately, they're not an indication of your state and the direction your state is going towards. When you still have all these a bedrock of relationships with the illegal entity of Israel, your words don't mean anything. Yeah. You still have everything underneath those words that are make you intrinsically connected to the state of Israel, and that it's an undeniable fact that none of those ties have been cut. So there's got to be a lot of reasons for that. I'm sure his apologists will have a lot of reasons that they can provide for why he hasn't done so. And the same goes for MBS and all these other guys. And it's funny. Me and Sami were laughing over the weekend. We're like, both these guys, MBS and Erdogan, have done a grand total of 0 for Gaza and Palestine. But Erdogan gets cheered on because he's shaking his fist in front of tens of thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people, calling all kinds of language against Israel. Mm-hmm. And MBS is booed and everyone hates him, but they're both doing nothing.
But I would take Erdogan.
The funny thing is that MBS, if he was just a little bit more snaky, I don't want to give ammo to a snake to be more of a snake, but he could have done the same thing, and people would love him.
Yeah, you're right. They would.
And he could even he can present it even in a better way, that we are Bilad al-Tawheed, we're the land of Islam, we're here to defend the Muslim cause, Palestine, we're Arabs. I mean, there are a lot of things you could do, right? But that's the whole point, right?
He doesn't want to have anything.
Yeah, he doesn't want.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
they want to. They see Palestine as a obstacle.
Yes.
And they wish it could be gone, and they could. If they could wake up tomorrow and Palestine not exist, they would be infinitely happier.
Yeah.
Yeah. The idea of Palestine was it was almost an extension of Saudi Arabia, and at least in its previous kings, even though they're corrupt and horrible, but they still, at least on a surface level, they prided their disavowal of Israel and non-recognition of the state of Israel as something that was something gallant and something that was, something they were really proud of. Mm-hmm. And you now see a Crown Prince MBS completely distancing his population to the point where any public mention of Gaza and Palestine in the Haram is admonished, and you could be expelled from the country.
Yeah, along with UAE, along with Pakistan.
Yeah?
They're allowed to make dua now.
Oh, yeah?
There was a dua recently. Yeah, I heard.
Huh?
There was a dua recently.
They're allowed to mention it in every Friday khutbah now.
Just a dua? Or what are they allowed to say?
What do you want?
I'm just saying, I'm just wondering, are they...
Oh, no. But I'm saying, I just want to highlight too. It's not,
I can't tell you being serious or
I don't know if he was joking or not, because he's such a big troll. But listen.
No, but listen. The stated policy, the stated position, even still, is that they do care about it. There's no solution without them having their state.
That's what they say publicly. Yeah, correct. And I mean, MBS has said over and over again that any talks with Israel or normalization has to include something for Palestine. Yes. Again, these are I mean, Allahu Alam whether these are true or not, but point being is that I just want to highlight, this is not only MBS. Yeah. UAE is involved. Even in Pakistan, people were being arrested for protesting for Palestine. Yeah. So it's not this is a collective betrayal of Palestine. We cannot just isolate and zero out one person or one country.
Don't you know, Ward doesn't like when you make fun of Saudi, bro.
Whether
it's not hold on, just to add on to that.
Can we just a second?
Yeah.
Again, whether we were talking about Israel and its lip service about the two-state solution, and whether it's MBS or Erdogan, it doesn't matter. All that matters when you see the direction a state moves in, those are the effective policies. Yeah. Everything else is just PR, propaganda. There are some slivers or hints of truth in that stuff.
Those are just headlines.
But when you see a state making decisions to completely annihilate Gaza, you know there's no they have no interest in two-state solution. You think the Palestinians will live side by side with Israel after this? No. It'll never be a peaceful coexistence with them.
Wait, so writing love letters won't help?
Writing love letters.
I thought Jordan Peterson had a great solution. We could just write letters to each other.
That idiot, bro. He is so stupid.
No,
bro.
I mean, look, I think in all seriousness, I think people should think about it. I mean, Muslims, non-Muslims. How do you think this is going to end, or how do you think this is going to have an impact in long term after someone has killed your family, killed your relatives, destroyed your house, stolen your ancestor land, and some of them, they have children that are surviving? How do you think this is going to impact them? And are they expected to forget about everything and then act like nothing happened?
Also deny that you've been doing it. Like, not even acknowledge that you did it. They're saying, it's just a war.
Reminds you of Bashar al-Assad. Remember when, I forgot who that lady was that interviewed him when the conflict started. It's like, no, everything is fine in Syria. Did you go there yourself? No, nothing's happening. What are you talking about?
There's no war happening.
Yeah, did you go there and see? Then why are you saying that? I was like, the guy, he has the audacity to have a straight face in the camera and say that. I was like, man, these people are
you remember watching Avatar: The Last Airbender? The cartoon?
Yeah.
Remember, there's no war in Bossing Say. There's no war in Bossing Say.
We're actually considering rewatching that.
Can you believe it's the same stuff? That's why I love that show so much. There's so many parallels you can make to what's happening in the real world.
I gotta watch that with you.
Yeah. All right, guys. That's our show for this evening. Thank you all for tuning in. Help us out on patreon.com/themadmamluks. You can always help us through Zelle or PayPal by sending your payment to themadmamluks@gmail.com. We're a complete nonprofit organization that relies on your support, and really excited to present some new guests that are coming in studio by the end of the month. We'll see y'all next time.
Make sure to like and subscribe and share if you can.
Allahumma ansur al-mujahideen fi Asqalan.